Welcome to today's episode, Don't Pick the Scab podcast, where we help men navigate the challenges of life after divorce and rediscover their strength and purpose and joy. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce a truly transformative guest, Joshua Rodriguez, the founder of Foundations of the Liberated Man, FOTL. This groundbreaking community is refining what it means to be a man in today's world by creating a space for men of all backgrounds, straight, gay, bi, queer, trans, to explore masculinity, vulnerability, and personal growth in a deeply authentic way. Joshua has dedicated his life to helping men unpack the emotional weight they've been carrying, reconnect with their humanity, and build meaningful relationships through reflection, accountability, and community. Their work is not about becoming someone else, but embracing who you truly are with honesty and courage. Get ready for an inspiring conversation about healing, growth, and the power of community. All right, Joshua, introduce yourself, and I got some questions for you.
David, thank you so much. My name is Joshua. I'm a man who grew up here in New York City. I'm Puerto Rican, Mexican, and Cuban who has had a long life of unlearning a lot of the stuff that was hardwired into me. Imagine being from New York City in the 80s, growing up in East Harlem, right? It's like my relationship with what it means to be a man is very storied, and I'm really thankful that you've created this platform for other men to connect and to hear our shared and lived experiences.
Yeah. Can you share a pivotal moment in your life that led you to focus on men's emotional growth and healing?
One of many. Growing up, when I was in kindergarten, and I graduated kindergarten, which was a milestone here in New York for me, I got gifts. I got He-Man, I got Battle Cat, and I got Skeletor and his purple cat. I forget the name of it, but I got it. It was a big deal, right? It was a big deal. Because what happens next is what changes everything. I go to the first grade, I graduate, and I got no gift. And I looked at my mom, and the conversation essentially said, kindergarten was the first one you get a gift. After that, you don't get any more gifts because that's your responsibility. And so as a 6-year-old, logically that makes sense. It's like, all right, I guess that's how it is. There's no recognition for my hard work because my hard work is my responsibility. And that shit lasted with me for 30-something years. And the way that showed up in relationship was I was void of affirmations to my partners. I didn't give them credit for showing up in relationship because, to me, that's what they were supposed to do. And so if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, you don't need recognition because that's your responsibility. And it wasn't until I was doing an interview with someone I was seeing years ago, and they were talking about just wanting recognition. And it dawned on me that all this pain and suffering they were going through for years up until this point was all because they just wanted to be seen. And I was like, wait a second, I've been doing this my whole life. And that was a real eye-opener because it wasn't just her. It was every relationship before her. And that made me ask myself, is this the man that I want to be? Is this how I want to be showing up? I didn't even mean to be showing up this way. I just thought this was how it was supposed to be. And that was huge because the obvious pain in front of me. But then it also made me question inherited systems. What else is governing me that isn't mine, that I don't believe in, but I believe that's just the way it is? And so that opened up one of the doors to having to develop this relationship with emotional maturity, with just being an adult.
Wow. So what kind of challenges did you face in building a space that welcomes men from such diverse backgrounds and experiences?
So my own relationship with sex and sexuality. Growing up here in New York City, I had family all across the spectrum in New York, Texas, and Florida. And some of the family ostracized it depending on how deep into religion they were, depend on their relationship with sexuality. On the other side, here in New York, the more liberal family was more open with it, but it wasn't something talked about. And so, being a child of the 80s, I grew up where in order to be a man meant to have sex. And it meant to have a lot of sex. And the more partners you have, the more of a man you are. And I bought that. I believed it. And so I went on that journey, and I started that journey at 12. And I thought that's what I was supposed to be doing. I moved out at 16, maybe 17. I joined the Marines at 18. I was in the government. I worked for the feds. From the feds, I went into law enforcement, contractor work for a period of time. And in all these hyper-masculine spaces, I was the guy people were coming to for questions around sexuality and identity and relationships. And because I wasn't an athlete, I may look big on screen, but I'm a tall 5'5", right? I wasn't an athlete. In education, I had a really hard time in school. I was diagnosed with ADHD much, much later in my life, like 3 years ago. And I didn't understand the working mechanisms of math, of dyslexia, and of having this processing that I do in my brain. So I wasn't a scholar. School was very difficult for me. And where I was able to claim power and identity was through sex and sexuality. I went through family court at 19 with my first daughter, and that was a 8-year process. And it was the most painful experience I had ever had. One of, very painful. And because no matter how hard you try, no matter how much you do right, no matter what it was, the man was always wrong and was always invisible. And no matter what I did, I just couldn't get fair treatment. And so that made me angry. And so throughout this journey with sex, I decided that sex is going to be my power over people. And I would consume sexually so that I made sure that a person was so connected to me, they felt so connected to me, they couldn't leave or they wouldn't betray me. And so I used sex as power over for a period of time. As I grew into maturity and I dove deeper into my relationship with intimacy and power and anger, I realized what I was doing through intimacy and sex. And so I started to change my behavior because I didn't want to be that person. But this was all happening subconsciously for the first few years. It was when I became aware of connection, of the vulnerability and trust people were putting into me in these conversations and in the relationships I was having. It dawned on me that maybe I just didn't have all the information, and that life isn't what I was told. And so I started to question the system. And in questioning the system, I found my road back to faith, because I had to ask myself, what do I believe? If this is what I see, what do I believe to be true? And that opened the door to realizing that I was operating through belief systems that weren't mine, that I inherited. I was operating in frameworks that made me feel invisible, because I felt like as a provider, I have to provide, and if I'm not providing, I have no place. That's not true. But I had to unlearn that. I still got to fucking bring something, right? I can't just be a consumer. I have to bring something, but if I don't bring, that doesn't necessarily mean I don't belong. I just don't have to bring all the time. And it's like maybe sometimes I can sit down with another man and just exist, because providing takes a lot. And it was in this time where I got to rest and sit with other men at a retreat that I first attended through All Kings a few years ago, where I got to sit in space with all these other men and hear all their pain and all their suffering. And I got to witness the stories being shared, and it was like, I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one suffering. I'm not the only man who wants to show up but is having a hard time doing it because no one taught me either. And so seeing this gap in space among the spectrums of sex and sexuality, there is no space for any men in any types of spaces unless we're making them. And they're hard to come by. They're not hard to come by, because there's quite a few out there, but the ones that really resonate, the ones that really have grounding for me have been hard to come by, because sex and sexuality is something that a lot of people aren't comfortable talking about. And that's where I think a lot of breaches of trust happen to men when we're boys, that goes unsaid. And it's like, if that's not being addressed, then we're just covering over the wound. We're just putting a Band-Aid over it. Because for a majority of men that I've sat with, I've spoken to, I've witnessed, the betrayal starts then. It starts when we lost our autonomy for our body, when we were forced or made to believe in certain things about ourselves that aren't true. And it doesn't even have to do with sex. It has to do with masculinity. What is boys don't do that, men don't. It's like, that's not true. Boys need to cry sometimes. Sometimes boys aren't going to be fucking Marines, right? Maybe a boy wants to be a nurse, or a boy wants to be whatever it is. As long as these men that I'm connecting to are defining what masculinity and being a man means, then we're on the right track. Because they've just been, almost every man I know at one point has been lost until we've been able to find our way there. And I found a path. And so it's like, I'm just making a beacon for the shit that I know.
Wow. What does liberation mean to you personally? And how do you see it manifesting in the lives of the men you work with?
Thank you. That's a great question. Liberation for me is freedom, in the sense that I can say what I mean and mean what I say and stand in it. Understanding that there's going to be circumstances sometimes, and that sometimes the shit's not going to land right or well, but that I can do it with compassion, but I can still stand firmly in what I believe to be true and not erase myself.
We talked about community earlier. Why is the community part such a critical part of the healing process for men?
So community, I was out to dinner with two of the guys from another group that I'm trying to break bread with, and we went out to dinner, and I'm sitting with them, I'm listening to their conversation. Nice guys, great guys, but they're dancing around stuff that I have no interest in talking about. And because I think I was here yesterday with a friend of mine, I was saying, I'm looking for my people, but my people necessarily don't look like me. Maybe we're not the same gender. There's a particular flavor of what I'm looking for in which I sit at my dinner table with. I'll go out to movies and dinner table with. And maybe these guys were, maybe they're not my people. I don't know yet. I haven't given it time. But community for me, in men's spaces, what it means is men from all walks of life, all different lived experiences are going to come into this communal space and share on masculinity and manhood from our varied walks of life, not to conform to each other, but to assimilate into this men's space culture, to be able to share and talk our lived experiences with decorum and respect and dignity, to witness each other and say, wow, this gay dude from fucking Chelsea is having the same problems as the dude from Washington Heights, as from Bed-Stuy, and they're all different orientations, they're all different skin colors, and they're all different religions, and they're suffering the same problems. And that's what community is for me. It's not we're all looking the same, we're not thinking the same, we're not talking the same. It's we're able to come under the same roof for the same string, or unite under the same problem or mission.
So what are some of the common fears or misconceptions men when they first join your community?
Oh, am I man enough? Am I man enough? It's crazy. It's crazy, dude. I did a men's retreat in November up at a venue called Eastern Mountain. My friend John Stasio owns it. This guy's like a walking saint. He's an amazing man. And he afforded me an opportunity to take a group of men up there. We had just short of 20 people. And this is how Foundations of the Liberated Men came, because there was all types of representation there. White, black, straight, gay, religious, there was trans men, there was all types of people who were claiming manhood and masculinity in this space, or looking to develop a relationship with it. When we did our opening circle, The gentleman off to my right, I remember where he was sitting. We were doing our opening circle. His name, where are you from? What are you hoping to get out of this weekend? And what brought you here? Something like that. And one of the answers he gave was, I struggle with masculinity, and I don't feel enough. And I said, just by show of hands, who else experiences that? And every man raised their hand. And he started crying. He's a gay man. He didn't think straight men struggled with masculinity. And straight men thought they were the only ones who suffered. And they didn't know, they couldn't understand how gay men could feel so invisible because of the absence of representation and the shaming and the joking of only girls act like that, only girls walk like that. It's like there's so much projection and fear and shame around it. But when we could strip it all back, it's like the problem, the string is, it runs through all of us. It ran through all of us in that space.
So what role does accountability play in personal growth, and how do you foster that within your community?
So accountability is very significant because it talks about what happens when things don't go as planned. And what do we do to bring things back into alignment? If a person isn't comfortable claiming their stake in it, saying this is the role I played, it presents a fucking world of issues. Ultimately, it deteriorates trust. And that's lost through truth, not the inability to show up in truth. So when a person's not accountable, they become unreliable. And if they're unreliable, they become a risk to the relationship, to the connection. So accountability plays a huge part in it. I was never taught it that way, though. I had to learn that from touching a lot of irons all throughout my life.
Wow. So how do you approach the intersection of masculinity and vulnerability in your work?
So I got to the consulting work and counseling work that I do now through helping people reframe their relationship with sex and sexuality. The avenue that people come to me through is kink and BDSM. I've been facilitating in this lifestyle professionally for over 15 years. And when coming into a kink space or a BDSM space, the idea behind it is curiosity, sexuality, and modalities. Another thing that comes attached to that is the expectation of transparent communication, truth-telling, ideally. So the arena, the stage that kink sets up is, this is a space that you can be truthful and transparent. The space that I hold and the space that I foster is about equality. Everyone has a first name. And to foster vulnerability, I have to lead by example, or the people in the space have to lead by example. I can't ask you to do something for me that I'm not willing to show you first. And so that's how vulnerability is fostered in these spaces. Kink is the permission in the space. If it's not a kink space, if it's a men's space, if it's a gym, if it's on the train, the idea is to represent the vulnerability first, and the invitation is for the person to meet me on that level of vulnerability. They don't have to, but it's to show them that this is a space where you can open up a little bit, you can drop it by 10%, and just taste what feeling seen feels like.
So one of my deals with divorce recovery is I talk about the self cousins, SELF, self-respect, self-compassion, self-worth. How do the self cousins play when dealing with the community?
Doing the work means to dive inward. To dive inward means to become self-aware. To become self-aware means to understand the value I bring to society and to show up and what I have to contribute. When I have that level of self-awareness, now there's a responsibility with all this self-worth, self-awareness. The responsibility is to invite others into it as well. The other thing, though, and when I say invite them in, what I mean by that is I'm going to invite you into this conversation. I'm going to meet you where you're at, But I'm going to invite you into this self-conscious, self-awareness, self-worth conversation. Meaning, I'm going to ask you something that's meaningful to me, something that's based on a fundamental truth about myself. One of my favorites is, do you believe in life after death? And it's not a guess, it's not a test on the answer. The test is on the depth you're willing to go with me. Because you could say, you know what, I've never thought about it, but I'm willing to think about it now, versus, I don't talk about that shit. Because part of this self-worth, self-awareness is understanding when a person doesn't get access to me.
Okay.
And in that, this invitation up and into a higher level of conversation and self-awareness means I don't have to stay down here with you if you're not willing to look inward and find vulnerability to show that you're a safe person to connect with. Because sometimes people aren't looking for depth, they're looking for consumption. Someone to hold all their problems because I have the capacity to hear them. And it's like, with that self-awareness comes the discernment to say, we aren't a match yet because you're not respectful of my energy. So self-awareness, like, that is a huge part, because there's a level of discernment in who gets access to me as well.
So what are some of the practical steps men can take to cultivate deeper, more meaningful connections with others? What can they do? Some of the simple things they can do.
100%. I would say mentorship. Find someone who's living life in a way that represents the way you want to live, and pursue a conversation with them. And don't just run up and say, can you mentor me? Come with an offering in hand, meaning commitment, service, assistance. I can go down the road of self-help books and podcasts, but it's got to be shit that's actionable, right? Something that you can see and do. One of the things that's really helped me, especially when it's hard on building community, is go provide service. Volunteer somewhere, or help an old lady across the street, or something in which I can be contributing, so that I can be engaging with people and seeing what it's like to connect without agenda. Because that's the other thing, is in this work that I've been doing for a few years now, so many people meet with others with the agenda of, where can I fit you into my life? Versus, like, they're looking for their next romantic partner or dinner partner or someone to go dancing with. Meet people for people's sake is another way, just so that you can learn how to hold space and have conversations without intention or agenda. Witness people in their lived experiences. Be curious. And it's like, I've fostered connection that way because I've learned, and speak to people you would not speak to. I've learned things from people who I would have never spoken to, and they had an answer to the problem I was carrying for 30 years.
Yeah, that's interesting. Wow.
So it's, I guess the easiest way to sum it up, the easiest way to sum it up is just find yourself in uncomfortable places and expand yourself and be reachable.
What about self-love, self-compassion? What role does that play in creating healthier relationships with others?
Self-love and self-compassion, self-forgiveness I'll throw in there too. My road back to faith is what helped me understand that, because I needed a compass. I needed a compass, and I needed waypoints, and I needed evidence. Because when I became aware of the chaos I was bringing into lives, and the chaos I had brought into lives before, I was beating myself up. Rightfully, because I was burning down villages, man, subconsciously, unconsciously, intentionally, in the framework of consumption, sex. When I found my way back to faith, and I don't care what a person's faith is, just ask yourself, what do I believe to be true? When I found myself there, and then I asked, what do I believe to be true? And then I asked myself, why do I believe it? And I started to build my evidence and my information around that. Then I was able to say, how am I showing up in what I believe to be true? If this is the line of, This will be. If this is my line of life, and I'm here, and I became conscious here, and this is all the crazy shit I've done. I only make it longer on this side because I hope to live longer than I burn down villages. So if I become conscious here, now from here I can see the shit I used to do and the things I want to do. And the more I am consistent in moving past this part of behaving the way I want to behave, the more, there's a few caveats to this though. As quickly as I'm willing to accept the bad shit I've done and beat myself up for that, I have to practice accepting the good things I've done and reward and acknowledge myself for that. That is not easy. I've only started doing that shit at 45. Because it was easy for me to beat myself up, but it wasn't easy for me to take credit for the changes. And when I was able to start taking credit for the changes, could I start working on self-worth? Because until then, I was just beating myself up. And how else am I going to forgive myself? And the way I found forgiveness was, I asked myself, what do I believe? Am I behaving that way? If not, why not? And then when I got there, it's like, am I consistent in this behavior? As an adult, as a person who doesn't want to be a hypocrite, if I was talking to my friend and they were telling me this shit, I'd be like, yeah, but dude, you're good. You've not done it in 5 years. You've changed your behavior. But I can't do it for myself. So it's like, part of adulthood is maturing into being able to say, you know what? That isn't mine to carry anymore. But that only comes, and this is the kicker, no matter how tough I wanted to be, I couldn't do any of this alone because I had to be witnessed in my changed behavior by people who weren't associated with it, but who were also doing the work. I had to be witnessed. I had to be witnessed. Because if there's no, internal validation matters, 100%. But if I'm not witnessed doing it, then it didn't exist, right? Could it have? Sure, it could have, but maybe not. But if there's a witness there, he says, Joshua, I see the work you've done, and you've changed so much. Validation. The shit I didn't get when I was 6 years old after that, because it was my responsibility.
Damn. So how do you handle conflict or tension within the community? And how can, whatever you do, how can that teach men about navigating relationships in their daily lives?
So conflict in community, All Kings really set the pace for me, because the way that I've seen them navigate conflict internally, two men sitting and talking shit through, and it says trying to reconnect. I just wanted to pause. All right. It was trying to reconnect, so okay. I just wanted to pause. So watching men sit and have a process to talk things through really opened my eyes. I tell people I became a man at 45 when I first went through All Kings, that I got to sit and witness these people, these men, and that I can sit down and I can have a conversation and I can talk about what I'm feeling and I can control my emotions. And these are all things fucking possible because I'm watching all these men do it. Now I have to go and I take these frameworks and embody them, because that's the other thing about these retreats and things like that. People go away on retreats, they do the work, and then they get all this enlightenment, and then they leave the work at the retreat. It's like, I have to bring this framework home and teach it to my people, and then use it as a tool to keep us in harmony or to get us back into alignment. And so what that looks like is taking the tools and the lessons in these organizations. All Kings is one. The Mankind Project is another. There's, come to mind, Foundations of the Liberated Man, right? But there's different spaces out there. You can research this shit. You can pull it up online, but this is stuff you have to feel in person. You have to embody it, because that's how I did. Like, when I did it that way, not only did I experience it, but I took it and I had to practice it and teach it to make sure I had it. And then whenever there's a rupture, if it's in community or if it's in my personal life, the repair has to happen. And the repair isn't just, I'm sorry. The repair is, what was my role in it? How do we move forward? What do you need from me? And it takes courage to be a man. That's another thing. To be a man isn't weak person shit. It's not weak guy shit. To be a man requires courage and ownership to say, you know what? I'm sorry.
You own that. Joshua, my men have about a half-hour attention span, but man, you have engaged big time. But we'll have to circle back for this one again. But where can the men find you on the internet?
You can find me on Instagram at liberated.men. Also, Foundations of the Liberated Man is the website, FOTLM.com. I figured I'd use the acronym, the initials, because typing all that shit in, I'll mess up the letters at some point. I just won't be able to get it.
Oh, man. And what parting words can you give my men? Give them some hope out there. Give them a little bit of hope.
Develop your relationship with whatever you believe to be true. Ask yourself, why am I on this planet? What do I believe governs my existence here? And dive into that. In there, you will find so much permission and so much forgiveness for all the things that you keep in the closet, that you're ashamed of, that you have no answers for. Dive into what you believe is true and build a relationship with that. If it's science, let it be science. If it's God, let it be God. If it's anywhere in between, don't let anyone tell you what you believe to be true. Life will change after that, I promise.
All right, Joshua, we appreciate you taking time out this, Friday afternoon? Yeah, Friday afternoon. And, man, thanks a lot, man. That was fun. We'll have to reconnect again. So hold on the mic. I appreciate your time.